I would like to invite Sangita to share her 2 videos and to briefly elaborate on captive elephant culture and advocacy in South Asia. Sangita, the floor is yours. You have 20 to 25 minutes allocated for you.
Thank you so much. It's really good to be surrounded by people who genuinely care about animals and elephants. And I was listening to Panchali, and I think there's a lot of similarities between what is happening in India, in Kerala in particular, and what is happening in Sri Lanka. Even the way the chains are wrapped around, it's no different in Sri Lanka as compared to Kerala. But I just wanted to also point out a few things that Otara was just mentioning. You know, she said the simplest way to understand is to put yourself in their shoes. The problem with that is they, you know, humans have this attitude that we are so superior, right? There's this superiority, feeling of superiority. They don't want to even consider that that animals and us are the same. They have forgotten that we are part of the animal kingdom. So when there's this combination of arrogance and ignorance, as Otara was so beautifully describing, then people just cannot put themselves in their shoes. They're simply unable to. And Otara also talked about shift is happening. And I see that happening through these kinds of communications and conversations. Sometimes I worry if the shift is happening fast enough, right? And we panic. And so thank you for those beautiful insights, Otara. I really enjoyed your speech. And Panchali, I really appreciated, you know, all of the details that you provided about the elephants of Sri Lanka, and good on you for launching this conference as a starter. And there's still a long way to go. I'm also very proud of every participant in this. And I know Steve Coyle, we have worked together to benefit the elephants of Kerala, to support them. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But to begin, I just want to give you a quick overview of the plight of elephants in Kerala. There are approximately 2,500 captive elephants all across India, and more than half of them are, you know, being exploited by religious institutions, not just the temples, but also the churches and mosques. And the reason being is that there are so many temples that exploit elephants, and they're seeing the amount of donations being brought into the temples. And so the mosques and the churches are beginning to say, hey, I want to have a piece of that economic pie. And so they're also starting to use. So clearly, there's not a single Hindu or Buddhist or biblical scriptures or anything in Quran or in any religious scripture that says, if you use elephants and you glorify me, I am going to be happy. God doesn't say that. In fact, every single living being has been created by the same God for whom these elephants are being tortured. Can you imagine that God's own children, and we are also God's children, and we, if you really think about it, we are inflicting such tremendous pain and suffering on our own non-human brothers and sisters. That's the disconnect. And I know Tara also talked a lot about the disconnect, and she's absolutely right. This is where we need to really try and focus on and decide on, you know, do you think that God is going to be happy? Religion and culture, both of these entities are being misinterpreted, misrepresented by a certain group of people who do nothing but mint money. They, you know, lease out these elephants in these festivals. And there's a broker in between. It's like, you know, when you do some kind of an insurance policy, you have a broker, you have an insurance company, and you have the person. So if the middleman, and this is what is happening in Kerala, you have an elephant owner, and then you have a broker, and you have the temples. This broker is going to work out whatever is most beneficial to him. So he will negotiate with the owners, you'll negotiate with the temples. And of course, in the temples, you have a whole bunch of devotees who think, oh my God is going to bless me if I sponsored this elephant. Actually, God is going to curse you, because whatever you are doing is inflicting such tremendous pain and suffering. And as Otara was talking about, she's been a target of attack, so have I been. And we women in particular face these in patriarchal cultures, and this is just in your face constantly. Especially after the release of my film Gods in Shackles, I received death threats, and there's this one individual whom I don't even want to name. He thinks he's this culture's protector, and he thinks we are all the enemy of the culture. And these kinds of pathetic memes are being planted in the minds of people. People need to really stop and understand that what they're doing to the planet and the elephants is going to return to haunt us. When you capture elephants from the wild, what you're doing is you're destroying the entire forest ecosystems, because so many elephants within the forest ecosystems depend on the survival of elephants. And by you capturing these elephants, you are basically destroying the whole forest ecosystems. When you really think about it, forests have trees. Trees give us oxygen to breathe and take up the carbon dioxide we put into the atmosphere. So imagine you are destroying the very breath of life. Trees give you life. Elephants are the source. They plant seeds across the forest floor when they walk for miles on end. And these seeds become trees, and trees are a life-giving source. But I want to share with you the pathetic plight of the elephants after they are captured in this video, which is about 7 minutes long. And after that, I'll come back and I'll talk about the psychological impact that these elephants go through. And I will do that within 1 second. And just let me know if you can hear, if you can see the screen. Can you see the screen, everybody?
Yes, we can see the screen, Sangita.
विद्यादायक बुद्धिप्रदायक सिद्धिविनायक हे शुभदायक गजवदना गणनाथा नाथा. I have returned to Kerala, a lush and beautiful state on India's southwestern tip. Kerala is also where I was born. But this is no sentimental homecoming. I am on a mission to stop the brutal torture of these sensitive, intelligent creatures. The city of Thrissur is the cultural hub of Kerala and the epicenter of the elephant entertainment industry. This is the dawn of the annual Thrissur Puram festival. Thousands of people are arriving from across India and around the world. Thrissur Puram is by far the biggest festival of its kind. It runs non-stop, day and night for 2 days. For a blind old bull named Tripaya Ramachandran, it means standing shackled all night in a makeshift temple known as the Pandal. He may be blind, but he's not deaf. have very sensitive hearing, and research shows that their feet and trunk can feel even the most subtle seismic vibrations. But there's nothing sensitive or subtle about the assault that's unleashed all around him. In the morning, the festival grounds look like a war zone. The temple roof looks like it's been hit with artillery fire. The highlight of the festival is the umbrella ceremony. I can't think of a single Hindu scripture that mentions waving umbrellas while standing on top of an elephant. In fact, all the holy books tell us to treat all creatures with respect and reverence. Elephant society is based on strong families. And just like in human families, the priority is protecting the young. This little baby wanders a bit too far from mom, so his aunt steps up and nudges him back in place. It's an almost human scene that you might see in any playground or park. Wild elephant conservation is an Indian success story. There are 50,000 wild Asian elephants on the planet, and fully 60% of them, 30,000, live in India's jungles. And this is where they belong, wild and free, not shackled and enslaved. Guruji Padmanabhan embodies all of the suffering of captive elephants. As we approached him, I noticed first the colorful decorations that covered his shackles. Then I looked beyond these tawdry ornaments. His hind legs were covered in raw, bleeding wounds. His angry and arrogant owner and his mahout tried to block our camera.
Excuse me, please stop. You want photos? I'm filming the parade. You want photos? Go on.
They know what they're doing is wrong. This is Ramabhadran, and I noticed he was struggling to eat. It was a sad sight. I learned that his fumbling efforts to feed himself were because his trunk was partially paralyzed. Despite his pathetic condition, they don't even loosen his shackles. So he hobbles and limps along. Just watching him trying to scoop up water from the tank with his lifeless trunk was gut-wrenching. I was told that 7 years earlier, a careless truck driver had slammed the door on his trunk. Ramabhadran is one of more than 700 captive elephants in Kerala, whose welfare is being sacrificed for profit. I'm fighting for him and all the other captive elephants, and will continue to give voice to these sentient beings until justice is done or until my last breath.
So I'm just trying to stop sharing. And so that is the real, situation in Kerala. And the problem is the Indian government has come up with this Wildlife Protection Act amendment, which has included the words religious purposes, which means elephants can be used in religious purposes, which makes our fight for these beautiful animals even more difficult. Initially, they had come up with the amendment saying live elephants. I mean, that was so ambiguous that the entire conservation community went berserk, and we all wrote letters to the Indian government, and I had many, international organizations write to them and talk about the psychological impacts of captivity, etc. And so they then brought it down to religious purposes and anything else, but it is still ambiguous. What does anything else mean? So there are so many ambiguities, even in the Wildlife Protection Amendment 2022 that they are about to launch. So it has yet to be seen, and we are still fighting. There are still organizations in India that have written to them and said, do not allow this thing to pass, because it's going to really, really impact the lives of elephants, and it's going to encourage the illegal wildlife trade, which is already rampant. Illegal elephant trade, basically, especially the northeastern states like Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Bihar. These are the places where capture of baby elephants are rampant, and this is something that we have to continue to keep an eye on, because it has nothing has yet been finalized, but they're very close to deciding on this. And we continue to use the social media, as Tara was talking. Please try and share everything you can, whatever you see. This is one amazing platform we have, right? The social media platforms. If you see something that's wrong, just speak out, because each of us have the ability to do that. We all have cell phones. You can take a photo, you can take a short video, post it on Facebook, name and shame those who are doing it. Even then, there are no guarantees that they'll stop, but we need to do our part. And so one of the things that I learned through this process of captive elephant situation is, the psychological impact of keeping them in captivity. And I did a lot of research, and I actually conducted an interview with a wonderful psychologist called Dr. Jessica Belrosolo. I'm going to share that video. It's about 7 minutes long as well. And after that, I'll wrap up with just a short conversation and letting people know what we are doing. So let me just do that screen sharing again. It's the name of the documentary is called Prisoners for Life. And I was honored to receive the National Geographic Storytelling Award, which helped me produce this film. And I'm also a proud National Geographic Explorer, so I thank them for that. So I'm just going to share this for you, and let's just play the film.
This bull elephant is trying to break his chains and escape from his jail cell. Madhavan is among the 44 prisoners in this notorious concentration camp for elephants in the southern Indian state of Kerala. This place is called Punnatur Kota. Inside, mostly bull elephants are crammed into a small area, sort of an elephant factory farm. 13 of them are exploited in cultural festivals and temple rituals. Between 2014 and January 2020, at least 15 elephants in this facility had died from exhaustion, neglect, and abuse. This elephant is trying to cope with the heat by spraying gutter water flowing from the bull who's being hosed down. It's 40 degrees Celsius today. No respite from the blistering sun. There's no water tank in the vicinity either. Desperate situations call for desperate measures. He tries to break his chain, but he can't. He's visibly traumatized. Dr. Jessica Bell Rizzolo has studied wildlife crime and transspecies psychology.
Humans and elephants share the parts of the brain that are susceptible to trauma. So they share that role of attachment in shaping the right brain and in shaping those connections between the right prefrontal cortex and the limbic system. And what basically that means is that that individual's ability to regulate stress and emotion is compromised. So you see what's either called hypoarousal, or the inability to respond adequately, which could manifest as depression or severe agoraphobia, fear of being with other members of your species. Or on the other hand, you can get hyperarousal, which means you have this hypervigilance. You see this when elephants charge with no provocation, or in captivity when they flinch when someone goes near them even though there's no actual danger. They're expecting danger.
Watch this elephant flinch as his handler approaches him. He's suddenly alert, but in a few seconds he settles down, realizing that he won't be punished. In the wild, elephants wander across vast areas, 16 to 18 hours a day, feeding on as many as 400 plant species in order to meet their nutritional needs. But here, they are shackled in cruelly short chains day and night, forced to stand in their own urine and excrement. The ankles of most elephants are swollen and deformed from a lack of exercise. Occasionally, they get to walk a few steps and carry the palm branches. But other than that, they'll remain shackled here for the rest of their lives, bored out of their minds.
You also see stereotyped behavior, so that's where an elephant is rocking back and forth like this repeatedly, biting their own trunk.
Such behaviors are symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. It's caused by years of abuse, and it ruins the animal's ability to think. If the trauma persists, PTSD can hinder brain development, as seen in almost all captive elephants. Dr. Rizzolo says there are 3 deeper issues that cause PTSD.
The first would be that deprivation of agency. So if that elephant is unable to make basic decisions about his or her life, who to mate with, when to have social interaction with another elephant, how long to stay with the mother, that could really impact the right brain development.
Every movement is controlled. This long pole is used to enforce the so-called freeze position. If he moves too much, the pole will fall and he will be punished. This bull seems to have just given up on life.
The trauma is such that the sense of self is impaired, so that that elephant doesn't even have a sense of themselves in relation to other elephants, in relation to their herd. Third way, again, could be if that normative social structure is ruptured on a larger scale. You see results of that just as you see in human cultures that have experienced trauma after trauma. Elephants have their own culture. They have social information. They pass through generations. They have those strong social bonds. And so their culture really becomes fragmented.
Dr. Rizzolo argues that elephants are autonomous by nature and they should be allowed to control their own lives.
Elephants possess agency. It would really be, do they have freedom of movement? Do they have social freedom? Do they have the ability to make basic decisions about when to move or eat or mate? And that is really impaired when they're in a state of kind of persistent and unpredictable violence.
Dr. Rizzolo recommends a new approach that would afford elephants the freedom to govern themselves so their culture and society can flourish.
Self-determination recognizes that animals other than humans need social structure to flourish and to be full beings. When we prevent elephants and other social animals from expressing their social needs, from touching other animals of their species, we're really depriving them of self-determination.
But until the loopholes in the wildlife and animal welfare laws are amended and strictly enforced, there's little hope for elephants in this concentration camp. If left to the religious institutions, these captive elephants will perish while people cling to their cultural myths. What a stark paradox that India's cultural icon has been doomed to a lifetime of slavery. Reporting from Kerala, I'm Sangita Iyer.
So I really wanted to share that video, and this is the first time I'm sharing, by the way. So I just thought it's really, really critical that we start discussing the challenges they face physically and psychologically, the trauma they go through. And I know my time is coming up, so I'm just going to wrap up this conversation and just say, I want to give hope, because collaboration, this kind of collaboration is so critical to bringing forth any changes. And one of the people that I've worked with is Steve Coyle, who's also one of the speakers, and himself, me, and Dr. Susan Mikota, we went to the same concentration camp. We tried our best to make a difference. The first day we went, the second day they blocked us because they saw me filming. And as a videographer, what I was suggesting was, let's do the filming of the before and after, so we can show people the transformation that we are trying to make. But they kicked us out. So that went off the rail. But then what happened is the Kerala State Department, the Chief Wildlife Warden, Mr. Surendra Kumar, he invited me and Stephen Coyle back again. We went into some of the government-run elephant camps, and we did make a difference in the lives of some elephants, because one of the people there, like, he was so receptive of everything we were saying. And I'm holding my hope, because the new Forest Secretary of Kerala is more open to these kinds of ideas. So the moral of the story is, if we don't collaborate, we cannot make a difference. There's no need for competition between the nonprofit organizations and the activists. There's no need for criticism. There's no need for any of that. Just stop it. Just stop it. This is a critical time in our planet's history. If we all don't come together, we're all going to implode along with the planet. So let's get real, let's get serious, and let's make a difference. Spread the word, and just, let's work together. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Sangita. That was very insightful, and it's really indicative of just what a South Asian problem this is. It's not just restricted to Sri Lanka. It's clearly happening en masse in India, and there is a lot that needs to be done across trans-country boundaries in order to address this issue overall. So extremely insightful. Thank you for all the hard work you put in, and we look forward to continuing collaboration with you on these matters. Thank you once again.